Hi guys, so the video cut off. The video that I was talking about was intersecting topics of trauma, letting go, childhood behaviours, aggression, conflict situations, and mirroring. Anyway, so what I was going into was the arousal levels and trauma and the effects, etc. Right, when you want to start looking at whether or not you possess in yourself complex trauma, the way to look at that is obviously looking at your behaviours and finding out if you have flashbacks, if perhaps you go into regression, so you go into an old mindset, you might not be able to deal with serious situations and go into kind of like a childlike mentality. The other side of things is repression. Do you have physical or psychological symptoms of exhaustion due to doing too much or knowing where your limits are but still pushing through those and actually ignoring the feelings that are coming up or the emotions, etc. Okay, so complex trauma. It's more probable to happen in childhood, but it can actually happen from domestic violence or addiction or any of those kinds of things in adulthood as well. So person who experiences complex trauma so there's situations that overwhelm our capacity to cope of an interpersonal relationship, so someone you have a relationship with of some sort. And these situations occur over a certain amount of time consistently. So, like, let's just say one situation happened to you as a child that may not put you in the complex trauma. But let's say one situation happened and then a different situation that was traumatic happened. And then, if it's consistent and you're experiencing different types of trauma or anxiety or flashbacks, visual kind of experiences, then yeah, you may very well be experiencing complex trauma. Okay, so now I have explained hyperarousal and hypoarousal. Let's look at what we can do. Okay, so reassurance is the biggest one that we can do for either our children or ourselves when we're looking at trauma and how to heal. Okay, so healing is the best thing we can do for ourselves, right? So when we look at trauma is actually stored in a certain part of our brain. So we've got explicit memory, which is long-term memory, and implicit memory, which is short-term memory. So when trauma is in our implicit memory, which is usually where it's stored, our brain can't shift it until it understands it. Because it's emotional, we have those ties to it as well. And sometimes it's ingrained because we've been brought up in that kind of environment. So the actual rewiring our whole ideas, our fears, and etc. on life is just completely difficult. It's a lot of work, but it's an amazing thing to be able to kind of look at our lives, look at what's affecting us, and be able to let go and move forward. Now, we got to be realistic about this, obviously. Okay, so we look at, in a childhood, we would actually look at more of a compassionate side of things. Like if we're a parent to a child, we would look at creating bonding experiences, creating reassurance, also letting the child know that you are safe and they are safe, because sometimes a child might fall into that parental role and try and parent the parent, which actually makes them feel unsafe. So another thing is trying to not force their feelings, telling them that all feelings are okay. The only thing that is not okay is to lash out in by violence, so I always try and promote that with my daughter as well. Let's not be violent, everything else is totally fine. Okay, so when it comes to, let's just say you have some issues and you want to know how to talk to your child about it, it's fine to share feelings with children. They actually create this idea in their brain when they're older, which does cause problems with relationships if they don't see you expressing your feelings, because they have this idea that everything's totally fine and that they can find that too, that people don't have sad days or have to fight through things, etc. So sharing feelings is so fine, but it's the detail that we share, obviously, with our children, etc., that changes that. So yes, the safety side of things, we just need to reassure them that we're okay, they're okay, and avoid too much detail, etc. Those bonding experiences. And okay, in adulthood, a bit different, right? So what we do in adulthood is you can do some psychotherapy and look at recognizing what was missing, and then make sense of that and then move forward. So you're recognizing what was missing from your childhood, or what was missing from what needs, etc., weren't being met. You know, were you safe, were you cared for, etc., etc. As an adult, addressing how we can feel empowered and strong through that trauma, and even you know, matching or mirroring our own feelings and being able to, when we're talking to people, etc., and analyzing, you know, raising our insight. So analyzing kind of what's coming up for us, why is this coming up, continually reflecting so that we can actually move forward, learn from our experiences and let go. Okay, so when we're looking at making changes in regards to this trauma, we have to look at our two priorities, which is establish consistency and establish predictability, which makes the child or the adult feel like they can predict outcomes. Because when it comes to people who have experienced trauma, they have issues with control, and I mean that in the sense of if they feel out of control, like I said, it may be a messy house, it may be something very, very simple, but that person has some kind of emotional feeling of being out of control attached to that, right? So we need to be mindful of that and look into ourselves and try and find what is causing that aggression, because, you know, like I said, people can be at that alarm rate and we can go straight up to, you know, terror, and lash out. That's where aggression comes from. Aggression comes from that feeling that we're not in control or something's triggered us, and we need to be mindful of that and try and work through that. All right, thanks so much, guys. If you have any questions, please ask, because I've been through a lot of material today and I got cut off. I had to do this video like twice. So yeah, all right, thanks guys, bye.